We begin today the Gemara on Daf Nun Aleph Amud Beis, where it says Tana Rabbanan, 5 lines up from the bottom of the Amud. Tana Rabbanan, we learned in Abraisa, Ein Mekablin Pekdainis, you should not accept any Pekdainis, a deposit that someone gives you to keep for them. Leimen Anoshim, not from women, married women. And the reason is because it's very possible that this is something that doesn't belong to them. They stole it, they took it from their husband, and they're using it, they're keeping it for themselves, and then they're giving it to you to hold for them. So you're basically assisting a ganav. If you won't accept it from them, so they won't have where to safekeep it, so they'll give it back to their husband. And not from a slave as well, for the same reason, because there's a suspicion that he stole it from his master. And and also for the same reason, not from little children. If you did accept this pekadon from a woman, what do you do with it? You return it to her. You don't have to return it to the husband. So the Rashbam explains, even though there's a suspicion that she may have stolen it, that's why l'chatchila you shouldn't take it from her, but nevertheless, we're not going to establish and say that she actually is a gazlan. We'll assume that it's hers as long as it's she's the one that gave it to you, and therefore we will give it back to her.
What are these picked or not?
I can't hear you.
What are these picked or not?
A pekadon, just any object that a person wants that she wants to give you to hold for her. If she passed away, so who do you give it to now? You give it back to her husband. Whether it was hers, the husband anyways inherits her. Definitely if she stole it from the husband, so now that she died, you give it back to the husband. If you did take a pekadon from an eved, who do you give it back to? You do give it back to the eved. If the eved is still alive, you give it to him. But v'meis, if this eved died, yachser l'rabbi, you return it to his master. You assume that it belonged to his master. And here the Rashbam actually explains that regarding an eved, there's more of an assumption that it belonged to the master than there is by an isha. Meaning the suspicion that an eved steals something from his master is greater than the suspicion that a woman takes and steals from her husband. And therefore by an eved, even if the eved freed him, and only later did he die, but when he gave you the pekadon, he was an eved of his master, and so now when he died, he wasn't even an eved anymore. The Rashbam says you still are going to be returning it to the master because there's a stronger suspicion that it belonged to the master. But as long as the eved is himself alive, we don't have enough of a raya that it's not his. So since you got it from the eved, there's a suffix here, so you have to return it to the eved himself. If you took this pekadon from a child, what do you do with it? Don't give it back to the katan himself. Instead, put it into an investment of something that will be a treasure for him, that he'll be able to keep and have later on. The Rashbam says if you give it back to the katan now, it's like you're throwing it out in the garbage, because he's not going to take care of it and it's going to get lost. If this katan dies, return it to those that inherit him. If he doesn't have his own children, there's different people that are the yarshim of someone. Now, the kulan sha'amru, all these people we just spoke about, they said, b'shas misasam, before they passed away, shal ploini hein. They tell this person that they gave the pekadon to that this pekadon didn't belong to me, it belongs to so-and-so. Yasa kipirushan. You should follow and you should do what they said. The Rashbam says it's lav dafke if they said this before they passed away. The Gemara is just saying what would commonly happen. If they're still alive, then if they have no reason to tell you, give it to someone else, they'll just take it themselves and give it to that person. But if it's someone, whether the isha, the eved, or the katan, before they pass away, and they tell you that give it to so-and-so, then you should follow what they said. Even though we had a suspicion about them, that it didn't belong to them, but if they're telling you this before they pass away, you can trust them and give it. Now, the im lav, and if not, now the Rashbam says the pshat of the im lav here means, and if you don't trust them, you see that what they're saying is just they're just saying it, but it's you don't trust what they're saying. Then yasa pirish lepirushan, you should interpret yourself what they're telling you to do, and meaning you should decide and give it to the one you see fit who you're supposed to give it to. And over here in this case, you give it to, if by a isha you give it to the husband and so on, as the Braisa said, you don't follow what they said. So the Gemara brings a story in connection to what it said in the end of the Braisa here. The Bisu, the Rabba Bar Bachana, the wife of Rabba Bar Bachana, Kikashachfa, before she passed away, Omra, she said, Hani Kefi, these earrings, I think that's what it is, no? How do they translate it? Yeah, earrings. The Marta or B'nai Marta. It doesn't belong to me. They're not mine. They belong to Marta and the children of Marta, of B'nai Brata, that is, and her grandchildren. So now what happens? Do you have to follow what she said? Asla kamei de Rav. So Rabbi Babachana came to Rav to ask whether he can keep these earrings for himself, or does he have to trust his wife? So Amalei Rav says to him, if what your wife says, she's trusted by you, so I say kipirusha, do like she said and give it to Martha and her grandchildren. And if you don't trust what she said, I say pirish pirusha. So you explain, you decide yourself what's the right thing, who it belongs to, and if it was her earrings or if it was yours, so then you can keep it. You give it to who you know it belongs to. Vikadamri, others say that Rav answered Rabbi Babachana differently. This is what he said to him. If those people that she said that it belongs to, so you see that they are taka rich, and it's logical to say that a taka belonged to those people, these earrings, so then do like she said. And if those people she said it belongs to doesn't sound to be right, because they're not rich, you wouldn't expect them to own such kind of earrings, then I say pirish lepirusha. You explain and do what you see fit, what's the right thing to do, and not literally follow what she said to do. Now the Brayser said, mina katan, if you accepted a pekadon from a child, what do you do with it? Don't return it to him because he's going to lose it. Instead, yasle skula, put it aside and invest it in something that will be a treasure for him that he'll have when he'll be older. My segula, what is this gula they have to make for him? Rav Chisda says, Sefer Torah. If you have enough money for this, you can take this and sell it and write a Sefer Torah for him. As Sefer Torah, some of Farshim here say, this is, anyways, besides the fact that a Sefer Torah will always stay there and be available for him when he gets older, but it's also a mitzvah on every year to write a Sefer Torah. So he'll have now the Sefer Torah for himself. Rabbi Baravuna Amar, Dikle de Ochamene Tamri. You buy for him a palm tree, and the palm tree is always there, and it produces the dates, and he'll have this palm tree for him when he gets older. Okay, going back to the Mishnah that discussed the halacha of chazakah, v'loy la'av b'nichsei haben, a father that's occupying his son's property for 3 years can't come after 3 years to claim that it's proof that he bought this property, and v'loy la'ben b'nichsei av, or a son that's occupying his father's property after 3 years can't claim this either, because the father and the son, they live together, and therefore the fact that one is occupying the other's property proves nothing. Amar Rav Yosef, so Rav Yosef says about this, afilu cholku. The Mishnah is saying this halacha even in a case where they split, meaning the son doesn't even live with his father anymore, he lives in a different place, or whether he got married, they're not even living together. But nevertheless, a father and a son are not makbid on each other, so if one occupies the other's property for 3 years and there was no macha, it's meaningless, it doesn't prove anything. However, Rava says, cholku loy, if the father and the son are not living together in the same house, they split, they're not in business together, they're not living together, and now the son comes and occupies the father's property, or the opposite. In such a case, it is proof that he bought it from his father if the father is not moich after 3 years. Amar Rav Yirmiyah Medifti, so Rav Yirmiyah Medifti said, Avad Rav Papi, Rav Papi did and actually paskined in a certain case, that, like what Rava said, that cholku loy, that if the father and the son split, then we don't apply what it says in the Mishnah that there's no chazakah. Kirava, like Rava said, and there will be chazakah in this case. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Ishtoili Rav Chia Mehormez, Ardashir. So Rav Chia Mehormez and Ardashir, names of places, he said that he told me that the Ishtoi lay Rav Acha bar Yaakov, that Rav Acha bar Yaakov told him, Mishmei, that Rav Nachman bar Yaakov, and the name of Rav Nachman bar Yaakov. Like Rava said, cholku loy, that in a situation where the father and son are split, so then there will be a chazakah, meaning the words of the Mishnah will not apply here, and there will be chazakah if one is there for 3 years. The halacha is, like Rava said, cholku loy. When they split, we don't apply what the Mishnah said. Tanya nami hachi, we learned this in a brayso as well. Ben shechalak, a son that split from his father, he's living separately, or ve'ishto shenis garsha, or a person's wife that was divorced. Also was mentioned in the Mishnah that by a wife there's no chazakah, but if she was divorced, there is. Harein kashar koloda. Then the halacha is like anybody else, where the halacha of cheskas gimel shanim will apply. Okay, so because it mentioned over here a son, a father after he splits, the Gemara here brings up a related halacha b'chlal regarding sons that yarshin their father. Itmar. So we learned the following machlokes. Echad min ha'achin. So you have a person that dies and a bunch of children, the brothers, they all are Yershim, and they inherit from their father his estate. And you have one of the brothers, he was the one that was taking care and doing all the business with the assets of the house. And this is before they split. The Gemara will soon explain. This is before that the Yerusha was split between the brothers. And are all kinds of documents. Oines is sale documents, and shtaris is documents of loans that are all being written on his name. So now this person is the one that takes care of the entire estate of the father. But everything is written on his name. So what is the assumption over here? V'amar, now this brother comes and says, Shalihem, these documents that carry my name, those are documents that are for my properties. Shenafuli mibeis avi ima. Those properties are actually not part of the father's estate. I inherited them individually from my grandfather, from my mother. Meaning that it's a Yerusha that he got specifically, that's not a Yerusha that the brothers that don't have the same grandfather have any connection to. So that's what he claims, even though he's one that's taking care of all the father's assets. He says, no, but this is a different Yerusha. So do we believe him or not? Omar Rav, so Rav says, all of Lahaviraya. He's going to have to prove this. Because he is the caretaker of all the assets of the father, we assume that the shtaris that have his name, only have his name because he's taking care of the assets of the father, which really belongs to all the brothers. So he's going to have to prove that those properties that carry his name, the shtaris that have his name, belong to him. It's a separate Yerusha. Shmuel Amar, but Shmuel disagrees. Shmuel says, no, ala achin lahaviraya. The brothers are going to have to bring a raya. Now you see these properties that have his name on the shtaris, on the documents of loans or of sales. The brothers are going to have to bring a raya.
How are they supposed to bring evidence?
So the Gemara is soon going to speak about raya. The Gemara is going to explain actually according to Rav what kind of a raya he can bring that he yarshened it from his father. We paskin like Rav here in this case. Rashbamia points out that usually the halacha is by all dinei maminis. The halacha is always like Shmuel. But in this case, as we'll see in the continuation of the Gemara, there's other Amirayim that hold like Rav. So in this case, we pass on like Rav. The Gemara is soon going to explain what kind of a raya you bring. Shmuel, but Shmuel said, Maida li Abba. Abba, which is Rav, he's maida to me. And then Rashbam here brings that his name was really Abba. The Gemara in Chulin says his name was Abba Aricha. That's what they called him. And they gave him the name Rav, similar to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi in Eretz Yisrael, that was called Rebbe. So in Bavel, Rav was the leader of the Yidden in Torah, similar to Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rebbe, so they gave him the name Rav. So Shmuel says, Abba will agree to me, she'imeis, that if this brother that was taking care of all the properties and has his name on the documents, and now he dies, and now you have the Yershim, and the Yershim are possessing these documents, if the brothers want to take away these documents and want to claim that it belongs to them because your father took care of all the properties, of all the assets of the father that belongs to us, the brothers are going to have to bring proof of that. The fact is that the shtaris have the name of his father, of these Yershim's father now. So therefore, if you want to come and take away from these Yershim, you're going to have to bring a raya for it. Ask if Rav Papa, so Rav Papa asks him what Shmuel says. How could you say that if this brother dies, not for these Yershim, the other brothers of their father are going to have to bring a raya? Why should they be in a better position than the father himself? Klum taninan luhu yasmi. Would we claim anything on behalf of these Yisaimim? Midi deloitan luhu avuin. Anything that if the father himself was alive, the father could not claim this. The father would have to bring real proof that these shtaris belong to him. There is a concept called tanina, which we had before in the Masechta a few times, that when it comes to Yarshin, because they are clueless and people come and easily take advantage of them, so Bezdin will claim for the Yisaimim whatever the father could have claimed to stop anybody from taking things from them. But in this case, though, we're making a distinction. We're saying regarding the father, if the father himself was alive, so Rav says, we don't trust the fact that the shtaris carry his name. Adarabba, we say that the assumption is that he is the caretaker of the assets of the father that belongs to all brothers. He's going to have to bring Eidim. He's going to have to prove that it belongs to him. But when it comes to his Yarshim, if he dies, regarding the Yarshim, now we prevent other brothers of coming and taking away these shtaris from them. And we say that we're going to assume that it belongs to them unless they can prove otherwise. Why are we saying this distinction? And the Gemara here continues and brings proof to this question. For how we find that Rave took away from Yisaimim Zuge the Sarbala, a pair of scissors that was used by Sarbalas for these coats, and he had used scissors for them, and the Safra da Agadata, and a Sefer of Agada, a certain Sefer, Miyasmi, that was in the possession of the Yisaimim. So Rave took it away from them, Beloy Raya, without having a raya. The owners did not have a raya that it belonged to them, and Rava took it away from them. Okay, so why did Rava take it away from them? Because it was bidvarim ha'asuyim lahashul lahasker. Because these were items that are made to borrow or to rent. So in such a case, an item that's made to borrow or to rent, you can't establish a chazak over them. B'chlal halacha by any metaltalin is when you have anything in your possession, the very fact that you have it in your possession, you claim that you bought it. We assume that it's right that you bought it and you didn't steal it. But when it's an item which is asuyim lahashul lahasker, if this is something that people usually borrow or rent, so the fact that you have it in your possession doesn't prove anything. It doesn't prove that you bought it. It's very possible that you borrowed it or rented it. So over here, Rava applied that same halacha to the Yisayimim. You took it away from them. And this is based on the klal regarding all metaltalin. Kedushalach Rav Huna bar Ovin, as the halacha that Rav Huna bar Ovin sent to say that dvarem ha'asuyim lahashul lahasker, when it comes to any metaltalin that people normally borrow or rent, va'amar lekuchanem biyadi, and a person comes and claims that he bought it, ein eneman, you're not going to be trusted. The fact that you're possessing it is not going to be a proof that it's yours, because people commonly borrow it or rent it. So the same thing over here, Rava applied to the Yisayimim and said, just like if their father was alive, so the father would not be believed to say that it's his. The Yisayimim as well, when they claim that it's theirs because they have it in their possession, they got it from their father. But since it's something which is asuyim lahashul lahasker, so therefore the fact that they have it in their possession is no proof, and therefore Rava took it away from them. So the Gemara is saying, just like over here, we see that we don't make a distinction between the father and the children. Just like regarding the father, there's no chazakah regarding such a kind of object. So the same is by the children. So the same thing over here, we're going to get to what we're talking about when it comes to the question of these shtaris that they're possessing, that carries their father's name. If the father was alive, according to Rav, the names of those shtaris doesn't prove that it's his, because he's in a position where he takes care of all the assets of the father. So if now he dies and his children have it, it shouldn't be any stronger than the father. So the Gemara doesn't answer this question, Kashya. This is the question of what Shmuel said, that Rav would be made in this case. Amar Rav Chisda, so Rav Chisda explained regarding what Rav said, that the brother is not trusted. This brother that has these shtaris, but he's taking care of the assets of the father, he's not trusted to say that it's his. This halacha of Rav was only if the brothers did not split, and they didn't split even in the isa, the dough, the food that they eat. They're all eating from the same kitchen, the same food. But from the dough, from the bread that they eat, it's split between them. So then this brother that has these shtaris and claims that it's his, Eimer me'isase kimitz, then he can come and say that he was stingy, he saved from his bread, and he skimped with his bread, and he just put aside slowly, and he saved up money, and therefore he now has these properties that he invested, and he has his shtaris and einis that is his. So if they split in any way, then the halacha doesn't apply. Then he will be believed. Now the Gemara goes back to what Rav said, that this brother has to bring a raya, that he has a separate inheritance and it doesn't belong to all the other brothers. So what kind of raya do you have to bring for this? Raya b'mai. What kind of raya? Rabba Amar, raya be'edim. You're going to have to bring edim that know that this what you're claiming is true, that you have a Yerusha that came from your grandfather, from your maternal grandfather, that's not a Yerusha from anybody else. You have to bring proof of that. Rav Sheshes Amar, Rav Sheshes says, even if you can't bring such a raya b'kiyam ashtar. The raya that Rav was talking about is these shtaris that this brother has with his name, as long as he has a verification from the Bezdin that the shtaris are kosher, that'll be enough of a proof that now his name on the shtar will be taken as being proof that it's actually his shtaris. And the reason is because Bezdin will not be mekayim a shtar that has his name on it if they didn't first verify that it's taka his, that it belongs to him. Otherwise, it wouldn't be mekayim such a kind of shtar. So the kiyum itself is enough of a proof that Bezdin already investigated this matter. Amalei Rava Rav Nachman. Rava asked Rav Nachman about what's the halacha regarding this case. Ha Rav, we have Rav's opinion on this matter. V'ha Shmuel, you have Shmuel's opinion on this matter. And then Ha Rabbe and V'ha Rav Sheshes. And then regarding Rav's opinion itself, we had the argument here between Rabbe and Rav Sheshes. How would this brother prove that these properties with the shtaris with his name belong to him? So Mar Kaman Svirale. Whose opinion do you follow? Amalei, so Rav Nachman answered, "Ano masnita yadayna." I know what it says in the Braisa, where it says in this Braisa like what Rav said. The Tanya, as the Braisa says, one of the brothers that is the caretaker. He's taking care of all of the assets of the father. And now there's documents that carry his name. And he comes and claims that it's his. I inherited this from my maternal grandfather, and so no one else has any part in this. All of Lahavi Raya. Like Rav said, he's going to have to prove that. And then the Braisa adds, the same will apply, v'chein, so too, ha'isha. She noises v'noisenes b'sei chabayis. If a person dies, and now his wife, the mother, she's the one that's the caretaker, she's the one that's taking care of all matters in the house and all assets. And v'haya oines t'shtaris yitzin al shema, and there are documents that are carrying her name. And v'omra, now she comes and says, shalihen, that the documents that have my name in it, it belongs to me. Shenaflu li mi beis avi abba, it came from my grandfather, or mi beis avi ima, or my maternal grandfather. The Rashbam actually says that in this case, you don't even have to say a grandfather. She could have just simply said my father. And then it's a Yerusha that she gets, and her children don't get anything from this. The Gemara is just using this expression similar to what it said before. So if she's claiming this, Oleh lahavi raya, she'll have to bring proof to this. Just like we said before, regarding one of the brothers that has the shtaris in his name. So now the Gemara clarifies regarding this Braisa, mai v'chein. Why is it bringing the second case regarding a wife or regarding the mother here, that she's taking care of everything, that if she claims that shtaris that have her name, that it's hers, that she's going to have to prove this. It's mashma that there's another chiddush here regarding this case of the Isha that claims this. Why is there an additional chiddush in this case that the Braisa spells this out? So the Gemara explains, Mao the Taime, I would think to say, Isha, when it comes to the woman, the wife, or the mother, kivin the shvicha la milsa, because for her, this is something which is praiseworthy, meaning that she's getting a lot of honor for this, that she's taking care of her children, of the family so well, that she's taking care of all the assets. The Omri people say, Katarcha kamiyasmi, look how she takes care of all the Yisayimim. So like Gazla miyasmi, because she's getting so much praise and so much compliments, so we were not going to suspect her that she wants to lose all of that status and go and steal from the Yisayimim, and then it'll be something that she'll lose that chshivas. So therefore, we're not going to be suspicious about her. By a brother, maybe there will be suspicious that one brother is stealing and writing documents on his name, but not by this mother. Kamash Malon. Therefore, the Braisa is teaching us that this is not the case. And Adarab Tosis over here brings the svara that it says in the Gemara in Gittin that she's made a heter. She's not intentionally stealing, but because she's working so hard and taking care of all of the assets for the children, for the Yisraelim, she says to herself, it's okay if I take some for myself. After all, I'm the one that's taking care of everything over here. So therefore, she's not going to be believed if she has these shtaris on her name. Okay, the Gemara explains another point that we learned in the Mishnah. The end of the Mishnah said, Bamed Devarim Amurim. When is all this the case? The Mishnah mentioned a list of people that cannot establish a chazakah in a property when they're there for 3 years. So the Mishnah says, when is that the case? B'machzik, to establish a chazakah. Alvo b'noisem matana. But in a case where someone gives you a gift, or v'ha'achn shecholko, or in a case where brothers divide the properties. The Mishnah goes on to say, so there, no'al godar u'paratz, if you're buying a property, and you put on a new lock on the door, or there was a fence, or you put up a fence, or you made an opening in the fence, that's a kinyan, and there will be a chazakah, even for all these cases mentioned here. So the Gemara clarifies pshat in the Mishnah. Atu kolhani da amrinon. In all these cases that the Mishnah mentions here, when someone's giving a gift, or brothers that divide, or a person that buys a property, so lav b'nei chazakininu, is this not also a chazakah? What's the meaning of the Mishnah here? The Mishnah is saying that before we were talking about chazakah, but these individuals over here, they could establish a chazakah. How? By na'al gadar aparat. Na'al gadar aparat is also a chazakah. So what's really the difference here? So the Gemara explains chasuri mechseri v'hachi ketani. What it's missing in the Mishnah, and the Mishnah should be understood as follows. When was what we said true regarding the first part of the Mishnah, that there are certain people that cannot establish a chazakah? What kind of a chazakah is it talking about? The chazakah sheyesh imotayna. Regarding a chazakah, where the point of this chazakah is when you have a claim that this property is yours. You're not buying it now. There's an argument between you and someone else. And the chazakah here is a chazakah of 3 years, and you're claiming that you bought it from him, and you want to use this chazakah as proof that you bought it from him. So there the Mishnah said a whole list of people that they cannot be trusted with such a kind of chazakah. So this is a case where the seller says, I'm not a seller, I never sold this property to you. And the person that's occupying this property for 3 years, and he claims that he's a lekeach, that he bought it. So in this case of an argument, and you're there 3 years, so the Mishnah is discussing who could, or really the Mishnah is saying who cannot establish this chazakah. However, regarding a chazakah, which is not regarding a case where there's an argument between two people, this is a different kind of chazakah. What is this chazakah? A person is giving you a gift, or brothers that are dividing, or a person that's now coming to possess the possessions of a ger, which are hefker. Here, this chazakah is to create an acquisition right now. There's no argument about this. Someone's giving it to you and you want to actually get it, to acquire it, to create a kinyan. So over here, what's the kinyan of the chazakah? Noal, godar, podat, kolshu, you put on a new lock, or you put on a new fence, or you open up you breach the fence, even a kolshu, areizu chazakah. This is a chazakah for anybody, even the people we spoke about before, the artists, the omen, all these kinds of people. But if you're creating a chazakah right now, meaning to create a kinyan, so then the kinyan will take effect, even for all these kind of people.